Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of And Now You Know with Bette and Julz. I'm Bette.
And I'm Julz.
And today we're going to be talking about a pretty serious topic. It's a little heavy, but we also think that it's super, super important to share this information so that we can protect our fellow women and community out there.
So, we're talking about your dysfunctional comfort zone. And I ran across something really incredible that someone wrote. The web page, if you want to go and follow it, or not the web page, but the handle on Facebook is called I Deserve Better. Go check it out. Go follow. This person is such a great writer. So I just wanted to read just a little bit of this one that I ran across just last night. And it's talking about being in love with a narcissist. You didn't lose the love of your life. You freed yourself from a toxic presence that was draining your energy. Narcissists aren't soulmates. They are predators in disguise, and recognizing this is essential for your healing journey. The person you encountered at the end of the relationship is their true self. Their genuine nature was concealed behind a mask of charm, charisma, and manipulation. You were drawn in by false promises, feigned emotions, and a convincing performance. Beneath it all, they were siphoning off your emotional energy, undermining your self-esteem, and eroding your sense of identity. What you experienced wasn't love. It was a damaging cycle of abuse where each day felt like a struggle for survival. Their gaslighting, emotional manipulation, and relentless criticism were not expressions of affection. They were tactics for control and domination. Their infidelity, deceit, and lack of empathy were not mere mistakes. They were intentional actions aimed at exploiting your vulnerabilities. You didn't lose a loved one. You escaped a toxic nightmare. And there's more, but that just truly captures what it's like to be in a toxic, dysfunctional comfort zone. And I consider myself to be a strong individual, and I'm full of faith. I love Jesus. I'm in the Word, but I got involved in a very dysfunctional, toxic relationship, and I loved this person so much, and then it became an addiction, and I thought he loved me. And I can sit here and say if he was ever going to love anybody, he loved me, but I don't think that those personalities are capable of really loving someone. And it is really hard to get out of a relationship like that once you're in the middle of it. And if you add houses and kids and a bunch of whole life experience into that pot of stew, then it's hard to get out of that. And you really do lose yourself. You lose your identity. You get on this spinning table of chaos and confusion, and you start thinking you're crazy. And what are your thoughts, Bette?
Well, so I mean, that was a lot. And what we want to talk about is everything that Julz just shared, but then also we want to kind of take a peek behind the curtain of why this happens.
Yeah.
And one of the things, we were just having a conversation today of your comfort zone typically comes from your childhood upbringing and what you experienced. And, as Julz says, nobody escapes childhood without trauma. And this is one of those things. If you had emotionally unavailable parents or abusive parents or alcoholic parents, whatever the situation was.
Or one died.
Or you experienced a horrific, like death, tragic experience, that absolutely left an imprint in your soul. And what happens is you are running from a program that was embedded when you were a child. And one of the things that I know that is true for me is that I had emotionally unavailable parents. And, I think about them, and I have all the love and I would say honor for my parents for giving me life. But I think about them, and I know that they did the best they could. but I think about the life they had, and I think to myself, it is very clear to me, why they weren't able to give me the things that I feel like I needed. Now, as a child, you don't know any better. As a child, you don't know these things at all. But now as an adult, I think back and, I've had experiences in relationships, in dating and also in my marriage where this is where the programming then affects you. Because it's one thing to be a victim to a narcissist and to live through all of these things that Julz just read, as she did. Literally, she could have written this. She could have written this because this is also her experience. But at the end of the day, while you still go through something very, very real in your adult life, this really stems from your childhood. And, what we really need to ask ourselves is, why am I not worthy of more? Why would I allow this to happen? What is within me that would lead me to believe that this is okay behavior?
But I don't think that when you're in the middle of
Oh,
it.
yeah. No, when you're in the middle, you don't know that.
I don't
know
think
that.
you even realize that you're attracted to someone who's truly not available to you,
Right.
and that they are honestly pushing the hand to see what you will put up with, and then they just do more and more and more. It doesn't really have anything to do with the infidelity or the lying or anything. They just really want someone there who will let them have the benefits of who you are, but they want to kind of live a single life over here.
Yeah.
They want a home base. I don't even know if they know they're doing it. It's so weird because they have substantial childhood trauma too that has wired them to be that way. And you have to reach a point, like me, I reached a place where I didn't even want to go on. It's like, if I can't figure out what my problem is and why I think that this is what I deserve and that this is what my kids deserve and my mom and my sister, and then it just ripples out. It has this horrible rippling effect. And I knew it was me. I knew I was the common denominator.
But you didn't know, as you're going through your life and you're going through these horrendous relationships, you didn't know that. And so really, this isn't about saying you're to blame because you stayed there. That's not what this is about.
No.
This is about hopefully getting this information to you beforehand so that you can start thinking about the experiences that you've had. And if this at all resonates with you as something similar to what you've been through, this is where we say, take a step back so that you can now kind of dig deep into yourself and figure out why you're doing the things that you do and why these situations are coming up in your life. Because what I know for me is that because I was unaware of this programming that I was running, I was unaware, I became codependent, and I continued to encounter people that were emotionally unavailable. Now, that was my dysfunctional comfort zone, because that's how I grew up. And so this is the point, we did not uncover this until we went through a lot of heartache, and then we had to go through therapy, and then we had to go through our own journeys of personal development and growth, and a lot of prayer and a lot of meditation and a lot of
Grit.
Grit to then pick yourself back up again and figure out, claim you deserve better. You are worthy of more. And so until you get to that place, you're kind of wandering around trying to figure out, why are these experiences happening to me? But there is a reason for it. And it goes back to, now you got to peel back the layers, and now you got to learn, what was it about what happened that has made that major imprint in you? And, people pleasing, codependency, these things that if they rob your joy, if they make you feel like you have to shrink, if somebody is overly critical of you, if somebody is, just trying to control your every move, all of those things, that's kind of it's their own dysfunction as well. There's a lot of it that is their own insecurity. They, I'm sure, might have abandonment issues. They definitely have their own traumas as well. But for you to figure out that is not the way that nobody is loving you properly that way, that's not love. It's not love.
It's not love.
So
It's,
you have to figure it out for yourself to make you a whole, happy, healthy person, and then get into a relationship with a whole, happy, healthy person.
and we're not trying to oversimplify this,
Right.
Because I went to counseling when I was 18 years old. I went when I was in my 20s. I went in my 30s. I went in all of my marriages. I went to marriage counseling because my marriages kept failing, and I didn't want to get a divorce. It's so crazy. I've gotten 4 divorces, and I don't believe in divorce, which is the irony of it all. But I didn't know why. And you've got to make sure that if you go to a therapist or a counselor, you need to talk about you, and you do need to go back to your childhood, because that's probably, no doubt, that's where it's stemming from. And I've talked to so many different women, and it seems like a real common thread is alcoholism. Alcoholism absolutely makes a parent not available in a child's life. My situation was completely different. I had a magical childhood. Honestly, I would take the 14 years of this fantastic child that I had over my parents living to be 100 being crappy parents. But
I agree.
But because my father died quickly, and it was so traumatic and gut-wrenching, my mom was only 38 years old, and she did dive into a bottle of vodka to numb her pain. And I do not want to talk bad about my mom, because she was my favorite human walking on the face of this earth. And when I remember turning 37, 38 and realizing how young she was to lose him. And I was just going into high school. My sister was just going into college. And you talk about having a rug pulled out from underneath your feet and then slamming down on the concrete. And just wondering what am I going to do? And so we all cope with those kinds of traumatizing events in our lives differently. I was 14. I had to feel it, and I had to watch everybody else feel it, and I wasn't drunk. So
And then you became a caregiver.
And then I became a caregiver, and then I became an incredibly high functioning codependent. And I was an overachiever. I just loved to make people happy. I did not want to see a look of sadness or stress or any of that on my mother's face. So I did everything I could to make sure that where I was concerned, she had a smile on her face. Then, when I was younger, it evolved into an incredible friendship and apologies, and it's irrelevant because I was never mad at her. Ever. I want to make that crystal clear on this. I am not beating my mom down, because we went through something that was horrible, and we actually had some fun, a lot of fun in there too, but it wired me in a way to be able to find the broken ones and bring this false sense of happiness into the world, the sunshine. And they all were going to end in the death or divorce, because that was my dysfunctional comfort zone, was picking myself up by the bootstraps and really having nothing. I had nothing when I was 14 years old, because my dad was dead, my sister was gone, my mom was unavailable, and I was 14-year-old that had nothing. So
that is the cycle.
And that's the
that
cycle.
Your dysfunctional comfort zone kept mimicking for you.
It did. And I was always, people are always like, I don't know how you do this. You're so strong. And I didn't want to be doing it. It was awful. It was hard. And, starting over, and there were, I had to clean houses, and I had to sell vacuum cleaners, and I did everything to survive. And that's how I lived life. Period.
Yeah.
That's how I lived life. Surviving.
So here's the positive the positive of all of this is that she is in the experience that she had. And I would say even though we had different experiences, the same for me, where when you come from this kind of dysfunction, you become incredibly resilient.
Yep.
You
Resourceful.
are very resourceful. You have a tremendous amount of grit.
Yeah.
You learn how to make something out of nothing. And it's actually pretty amazing. I'm really grateful that I have those skills. And because they've made me who I am today. And the other thing is we both have a really incredible work ethic, and we've both been overachievers. Now, it came from a not so great place, but it has actually led us to really great opportunities. And the underlying for me, and you can speak on how it is for you, but the underlying for me on the becoming an overachiever and, becoming a people pleaser and codependent and all of that is that I was constantly, because of the emotional availability of the adults when I was a child, I was constantly looking for my worthiness. And so I felt like I had to overwork, constantly like this pleading of, do you see me yet? Right?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. And I mean, it's incredibly sad, really. If we think about the things that we've lived through, it is incredibly sad. But at the same time, there is kind of a resilience and a skill within you that makes you a extremely strong adult. Now, here's the part where I believe when you are like us, where we have had to become these strong, independent, resilient, we become targets.
Absolutely.
We become targets to the people that she described, the narcissistic tendencies, because I think that then their mission is to then break that down.
Oh yeah.
And that's when she read this little passage, which was really amazing, and you can feel when you read it, and there's more to it. When you read it, it's actually really sad and crazy that there are people around that actually are in a way excited and thrilled to shrink you and to dim your light. And that's really what it is when you're in a narcissistic relationship.
And what's so weird about it is that they get you on these spinning tables and they're acting crazy. And then they want you to be emotionally hijacked. And then you respond to it emotionally. And then they go, see, look at it. It's your fault. Look how you're acting. Look at you. Look what you're doing. It is so mind-bending and frustrating. And every time that and it's a cycle typically. And every time it happens, a little bit more of you gets taken. These chunks, I call it sucking your creamy goodness out of you, and until you are empty, if you allow it to continue to go on. And so my point in all of this is that I'm hoping that you will recognize it.
Right.
And you can be in a very dangerous place with it if your partner is abusive. So you want to go and seek some help. Like we've got a place here in the town I live in called the Family Place, and I went and I told them what I was going through, and they helped me map out a plan that would be safe. I don't think that my ex would have ever followed through with some of his threats, but he could have for sure. And I think he would have been extremely remorseful.
Right.
I think it would have been an accident, but had that happened, he's in jail, I'm dead, and my kids don't have parents anymore.
So then why take that chance? Really, that cannot be love, and that cannot be happiness, and that cannot be joy and peace. It cannot be. Now, the one thing that I do want to say, and I want to hear your input on this, is that if you do find yourself in this kind of a relationship, we hear all the time people that are talking about their crappy ex and all the crap that they have done to them and how horrible they were and how narcissistic and blah, 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 blah. People talk about all of that all day long. And I actually think that the word sometimes is a little overused.
Right.
Because, I mean, it's a real thing, but the part where there's a little bit of a blurry line where it's not always 100% about the other person. what about you?
Yep.
What about, why are you there, and what do you need to learn about yourself? Because I do believe that every relationship, even if it's bad, every relationship is there to teach you something. Even if it's with a coworker, if it's with a boss, if it's with, your husband, your boyfriend, your whatever, even with your children, every
Oh, yeah.
relationship is there to teach you something, and they're there to be a mirror for you. So if you're getting all of this crappy treatment by somebody, and it is continuously happening, I think that this might be a really great opportunity to figure out, what is this trying to show me, and what am I supposed to learn from this? And then get help. And then get help.
Yeah, because it does not have to be a spouse or a romantic interest that is doing this to you. I just talked to a friend that I've known for 20 years, and her sister has been abusive for decades. And she finally put some boundaries around it. And it really has caused a fracture in her family. But I'm so proud of her because she is not allowing it in her house anymore. And it's been going on for about 2 years that she said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And the peace in her home now is significant. So it's hard because you love these people, but there's some disconnect inside of them that makes them incapable of love. And that's the true tragedy. But I don't want to sit here and make anybody think that I'm blaming my ex for all of it, because there's three sides to every story. There's my truth, his truth, and then there is the truth. And it was toxic. We could not live together. I've got lots of witnesses that would testify on my behalf. And I was just telling Bette the other day that it was so interesting because one day, I can't remember the context, but I was telling you about how I was looking at my swimming pool. We had a pool in our backyard.
Yeah.
And it had an algae issue. I could not keep that dadgum pool clean. And I'd go out there and put snorkeling gear on and be brushing and testing the chemicals, and then, finish one end and then get to the other one, and then it'd be turning green already again. I could not get this pool clean, and my kids were swimming in it. And then it was almost like I had this epiphany, and it was the Holy Spirit saying, you struggle and you struggle and you struggle and you struggle to keep this pool clean, but you can't do it. And it was an analogy in my soul that made me realize that I was swimming, I was marinating in the toxicity, and I was allowing my children were in there, marinating with me by default. And my sweet mother called me, and she said that she had made a decision, and that she was calling CPS, and that she was going to come to my house with law enforcement and take my kids out of it. She said, if you want to stay, you stay. The kids are there by default. I'm not going to let my grandkids stay in that. When you get a gutful, I know you'll get out. And that there were so many things that happened, like in the last 4, 5, 6 months that I was there, that was the reason I left. This was the reason I left. But there was just a compilation of reasons. But your mom calling and, saying I'm coming to get the kids and I'm going to take care of them until you can get better was an eye-opening moment in my life. And I'm so thankful that she did that.
Yeah, that's a pretty significant, that in itself, huge moment of like, which way are you going to go?
Yeah, and it's really sad because the narcissist or there's an enabler, and then there's a perpetrator. I don't know the right words to say for that, but they are able to find the codependent somehow or another, and you're able to find them because it's just a magnet. It's crazy.
It's the dysfunction.
It is.
The dysfunctional wiring.
And I've said it before, but my therapist said I could be in a room of 100 people and 99 of them could be healthy, and I would find the one that matches up with my dysfunction that is going to end in the tragedy. But I got well, and I worked hard on it. I just needed to recognize myself.
That's the point of this. That is absolutely the point of this, is if any of this sounds like, oh, that's interesting that they're talking about that or that they bring up that point, can you recognize it? Because it's only when you recognize it that you can change it. And you have to think about the reason why we called this episode Dysfunctional Comfort Zone is because what is familiar to you is more comfortable. This is why people are afraid of change. This is why people are afraid to, like, if it's moving out of a city or taking a new job or, trying or getting out of a relationship that they've been in for decades, staying in it isn't improving your life, and it's likely not the right decision if it's this kind of situation. But I've heard the quote. I remember this quote, and I've heard it, and it's some people have said, being with the devil that you know is better than the devil that you don't know. And I think that is actually really bad advice. That's really bad advice, because you shouldn't be with any devil, the one that you know or the one that you don't know. So I think that that's actually a really scary thought that people have said that. I've heard people say that, and it's because there's this such fear of change that staying where you are makes it feel a little bit more comfortable, only because it's familiar. And so here we are saying there's a better way. There's a better way. There's a better way. And it's not easy, but there is a better way for you to be able to improve the situation that you're in, if you find that this is sounding, a little familiar to you.
So I want to just share a little bit of my story and how it all plays into this. And I call it the cast her out and reel her back in. And it was interesting because I read a lot, and I was I heard this girl, or I watch a lot of posts too, but I heard this gal talking about kind of the cast her out and reel her back in theory. And she was talking about, if you find yourself saying, gosh, the times that we have that are good are so, so good. But then on the other side of that, but the times we have that are bad are so, so bad. That's what I was living in. And I know a lot of you out there are living in that. And so really what you've got to do is you've really got to look in the mirror and understand why you think you deserve the treatment. And I'm going to start with, and things had, this was the first penetration of pain that was so severe after we got married. I had plenty of red flags before we got married that I chose to ignore, and that's what we do. And that's where we make the mistake, is that we don't use our foresight as 2020 tool and understand. We don't look into our crystal ball and go, what's worst case scenario? And I could have done that. But this one thing that happened, we were in our brand new, beautiful house. I had just put up my first Christmas tree. It had all my precious ornaments that my kids had made, some that my mom had given me, my dad. So these were priceless ornaments. And we had a new cat that we had adopted. We found, somebody dumped it. We were in kind of a new construction, and we found this cat. We took it in, loved the cat, but it was a kitten and loved to climb the Christmas tree. We got up one morning, the tree had fallen down. Several of my ornaments were destroyed. I was heartbroken over, there were some of them were my kids' handprints, and those ones that you can't go back and get those. And so I was crying. I was really upset. And he set the tree back up, and it was like a switch went off. And he called me a name for me that is like the worst word. It's the one that starts with a C. I'm not going to say it on this. But Betty, it did something to me spiritually. Like, it penetrated my spirit, and it made me hot and cold, and it was the beginning of my numbness in the relationship. And I didn't know what was going to happen in the future. But what does happen is you have these moments, and then they are so remorseful. And I had to leave, and I went and drove around for about 3 hours, and then it was time for me to go pick my kids up from school. And so I had to put on Happy Mom hat for them. And by the time I got home, I was, pretty standoffish with him. And he's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, what's wrong? You called me a C."
Yeah. Gaslighting at its finest.
Yeah. And honestly, as things, they build and they build and they just get worse and worse and worse. And so they escalate to different forms of abuse. You've got your verbal, you've got your spiritual, you've got financial, then you get your physical. And sometimes I think that the verbal attacks and abuse are so much worse than the physical. There were times when I knew it was going to happen. It was a cycle. Like, it happened every 2 to 3 months. And then, man, the times were good. And then we had a baby, and that baby had some health issues. And I already had a child with disabilities, and I had one in high school. So a lot of my time I wasn't able to give to him, and he didn't have the security to be able to deal with me not being able to give all of my attention to him. Mm-hmm. And so it just escalated, and it turned into being pushed into a door frame and breaking my hand. There were times when he grabbed me by my throat and choked me. There were some other things, and I'm not going to say them on this because I don't want to get in. They were bad. So what you have to do is it's hard. It's hard to get out of those situations. But you've got to look in the mirror and realize, for me, I had to realize that I was the common denominator in these dysfunctional relationships, and had to, why did I think that's what I deserve, but why did I let my kids marinate in that? Yeah. So we aren't speaking from a professional viewpoint here. These are experiences, and if you find yourself in a place like this, please go get some help and get your circle of friends around you. Go to a domestic crisis center, and they can help you get a plan in place to get out. It's not going to get better. It is not going to change.
Yeah, it's definitely so. First, let me say that this is such a heavy topic, and it's honestly a very slippery slope, and kind of scary. So if you find yourself in a situation where these stories that Julz is sharing from her personal experience, it's definitely time to reach out and have a conversation with somebody that can help you. And if you have ever contemplated, what Julz just talked about physical abuse and verbal abuse and emotional abuse and all of these different things, and you are feeling the highs and you are feeling the lows, and you are finding yourself in, well, I'd rather have this one over that one. You shouldn't want any of it, and you don't deserve any of it. You don't belong there. It is absolutely not the right place for you. And so, we are not doctors. We are not therapists. We are not telling you, play by play what you should be doing. What we're simply doing is sharing personal experiences. And Julz has very courageously, because this is not easy, very courageously, Julz has shared her story and what she had to live through and what her kids lived through. But all of this is with a hope that you hear it and that you choose to redirect yourself and not get to the place where Julz experienced. And so, we do this from a place of, we feel that God has led us to this place of this platform of sharing, of wanting to help you be resilient in this, helping you walk through the darkness and all of those things. So there's so much to say about this, but really what I want to say is, if you find yourself in this place and this conversation that we're having, if it sounds all too familiar for you, I want you to think about why. Why are you sitting in a place where this is your comfort zone? And we want to help navigate you away from it, because you deserve so much more. So it's heavy, and we will continue to be here. We want to be here with you through the highs, as far as like helping you move past this and helping you reinvent your life and put you in a place and on a path that's so much better. But as we have learned in our relationship, we have been through so many things together, and there are people that will love you through this. If you feel like you're in a dark place and nobody will support you, Julz had people that were by her side as she was going through this.
And they're still by my side.
Yes, that supported her. So do not think that you're alone, and do not think that you can't make it.
And I just want to say we do have an email, and we'll leave it at the end. It's down in the bottom, but we'll leave it, and you can comment. But if you need privacy, email us, and I'll personally chat with you about it. And even if you're not, we live in Dallas, and if you're not here in Dallas, I will call the center that I worked with. If you're somewhere else, if you're in Seattle, if you're Los Angeles, wherever, in Borger, Texas, I don't care, Podunk town, I will reach out to my center here, and we will find a place that will help you. I will help you.
Yes, and please, I'll give you the email address. We always say if you have any comments or feedback or questions, always put them down in the comments below. But with this type of topic that's very sensitive, and you need some maybe what's the word I'm looking
Privacy.
for? Anonymity, right?
Yes, anonymity.
That word. Then shoot us an email at hello@betteandjulz.com. BETTE
and JULZ.
And this is one topic that was so important for us to talk about, because it is, you have to be aware of it. You have to look at it in order for you to be able to address it and heal from it and grow from it. So,
Yeah. And I can't say that I'm glad I went through all of that, but in a way I am glad that I went through it, because it was what stopped the curse in my life. It was what reminded me of who I am, and I am the daughter of the universe, and he does not want any of us to be treated that way. And you deserve to understand what is inside of you, maybe from some childhood trauma. Probably that's where it's coming from, that makes you think that this is the kind of love that you deserve. And maybe you're at a place of being so numb in your life that it makes you feel something, but it's not the right thing to feel. And we just want you to be safe.
Yes, absolutely. And for those of you that might be watching that aren't in a situation that is as severe as Julz, you still want to think about where you are. And if you're in a place that doesn't bring you joy and peace and love and happiness, you still need to think about that, because there is a range of severity, right? And what you want is to love yourself so much and have so much security and confidence, and sit as if Julz always talks about sitting in the palm of Jesus's hand.
Laying right there.
And if you are in a situation, regardless of the severity and the degree, right? If you're in a situation where you don't feel like you are being embraced with that much love, respect, and, have that peace in your life, then absolutely you owe it to yourself to take a look at the situation and figure out why that is, and also still go on the path of that healing journey to get yourself out of it.
Yeah, we're really hoping to catch you before you get into the marriage.
Absolutely.
We're hoping to catch you as you're dating someone, and hoping that you'll recognize the smaller things that occur, and just understand that they are going to escalate. There's no way that that's going to change with a ring or
a baby
or a baby or a mortgage or a swimming pool or fancy cars. That behavior is not going to change, and it's just going to get worse. So pay attention and do yourself a favor and a lot of pain, and get out.
Yes, and
that's it. And that sounds so simple, and I know it's not. So get some help and hang on to the people who love you, and they will help you. I'll help you. Betty will help you. We'll help you.
Yep.
So
we will. Reach out to us. Let us know. Let us know where we can help you, and we can at least take that first step together in whatever direction it needs to be in. But the first step is you reaching out.
Yep.
And becoming aware that it's an issue.
Don't be ashamed.
And then let's take it from there.
Yep.
So thank you so much, everybody. This is a heavy topic, but absolutely needed to be shared. And we appreciate so much the love and support and you spending a part of your day with us. And we will catch you on the next episode. Bye.